Welcome to the AVID Site Data walkthrough for elementary. This is information and updates for the 25-26 school year. The purpose and objective, completing site data and certification is an opportunity for you to both describe and understand your AVID implementation. And it's not about a checkbox, it's not about compliance, it's about you identifying where you are on your journey and using that information to help set goals and monitor your impact over time. And data and certification help you define your return on investment. I'm going to try to point out a few spots in this data process that may help you figure out more clearly how you can describe the return on investment on campus. Our objective for this time together today is really to complete site data for elementary or secondary on the MyAvid website and submit it to your DD before February 6, 2026. Now, that February due date has been around for years. It's kind of floated around in early February for at least 5 or 6 years. But what you may have experienced is that due date was kind of soft in the past, and that is a much more hard deadline for sites to submit that data to district directors by that February 6th date, so that district directors can review it and send it back if necessary if there needed to be updates, but also so that they're able to submit it by early May and continue to support the certification process. And there's information in this data form that may be helpful in continuing conversations about what are you doing and how it's impacting your schools and staff. Before we dip into this a little further, I want to make sure that we talk about the site team and the role it plays in supporting data collection as well as certification. The site team is responsible to make sure that this data is both accurate and timely and comprehensive, that it fully reflects the implementation of AVID on your site. And that information that you submit helps us, AVID Center staff, your implementation strategist, analyze the program's impact and identify where you might want to focus areas of improvement, as well as it helps us more clearly provide targeted support to schools, as well as more broad support for geographic regions. Some best practices to consider, especially knowing now that this February 6th due date is a firm deadline. You need to figure out how to backwards map from February 6th to early December, where we're at today, so that you can make sure that you're complete and efficient and you're not speeding towards the very end and just trying to get it done. I want you to utilize the tools and resources that we provide as well as your district provides to help streamline the work. We're going to talk about the AVID data collection form in depth over the next few minutes, and that's one of the tools and resources we have available. Beyond that, your district may have some tools, and your data systems, your student information systems will help you pull that information. And just as a quick side note, if you are not currently identifying AVID students, either by classroom or with a flag in your student information system, we'd encourage you to do that. It'll help you pull data in the future. And this should be a collaborative process. The site team should be working through this together. It should not fall on the shoulders of one individual. And so how can we divide and conquer the work, and how do we communicate our progress so that we are not surprised when we get to the end? So those are our 3 best practices to think about. And I want to jump again back to this certification timeline. If you haven't seen this, this comes out every fall and lays out our certification timeline for the year. You can see that site data and certification opened in October, and it closes for site data February 6th. Needs to be submitted to the district director. Certification and senior data, we'll talk more about those in an upcoming walkthrough, but you can see the dates for them as well. Depending on your role in MyAvid, you may have seen that we now have an elementary dashboard that lays out kind of the process for completion. So you can see there's 2 elements of elementary certification. It requires site data completion and the completion of the elementary CCI. And you can see in this particular dashboard that neither of those things had started for this elementary school. But district directors would be able to see sort of where things are at in the process. So how close is it to being complete, and where is it in the process before it gets verified by AVID? Ultimately, when you click on data collection elementary, the elementary data entry system, you'll see a page that looks like this, and it should be pretty familiar if you've done this in the past. It looks very similar. Once you're on this page, you can click on Add, Edit, View Current Data, and that will take you to the web-based input for site data. You can complete it, input it as you go, save along the way. If you want to divide and conquer a little bit and you want to utilize our data form, that is down below. You can see it there. And that's what I'm going to walk through next. That data form can help you collect the information so that the data entry can happen quickly, so that you can divide the work out and figure out who needs to share the information. So the next several minutes, we're going to run through that data form, make sure that you understand all the parts of it, maybe highlight a few key areas for you, and give you some marching orders afterwards. On page 1 of the data form, you're going to get basic demographic data. You can see that Middle Eastern and North African is added. That was added more recently by the Census Department, the U.S. Department of Census, or whatever it is. But that's that demographic difference is new this year, and want to make sure that you're aware of it. If you are not currently collecting that information, you can certainly include those students in other places as you may already. You can also see it's broken out by gender and AVID elementary students versus all elementary students. If you are implementing only at a grade level or a couple of grade levels, you would be able to identify where those classrooms are and what's the demographic makeup of those classrooms. Otherwise, if you're doing it across the elementary, those columns will be the same. The next part of the page describes your school, so what grades are being taught there, and then we look at the gender breakdown by grade level, and are those elementary students, AVID elementary students, or all elementary students? And then we also look at the number of teachers at each grade level, and then what number of those are AVID trained teachers. So that would be a place where we're going to start to collect information about who's been trained on campus. The next section digs into training some more. So what teachers have been trained, what counselors, what admin have been trained, and how many of them are on campus. The next section talks about classroom and school-wide outcomes, so particularly that attendance rate. So how is student attendance being impacted? And question 34 and 35 talks about decreases in transition time and students on task. And you can utilize a U if you do not currently collect that information. And if you are not, it may be something that you want to consider quantifying in some way, shape, or form as a vehicle to identify where some of AVID's impact is being seen in classrooms. The next section is on 36, 37, talks about the principals trained, and when we're talking about trained principal, it means that they've taken AVID Site Admin Level 1 for elementary, or whatever it was called if it was a couple years ago when it might have been Site Admin new or Site Leaders new. But how recently was that principal trained? We know that an effective AVID implementation requires a trained principal. And so if a principal hasn't been trained for more than 3 years, it would be wise to consider having them go through AVID training again. And you should talk to your implementation strategist if maybe that level 1 might not be the right place, but maybe level 2 or even level 3, depending on kind of where you guys are in that learning journey. Next few questions. Question 38 talks about those other people who may be AVID trained on campus that weren't captured in teachers, counselors, or admin. So people like special education teachers, EL teachers, curriculum coordinators, or coaches. Anybody that has direct contact with students that wasn't already reported to be question 38. And 39, 40, and 41, I think are really great questions that get missed a lot in conversation with ISs. The information is not super easy to grab for an IS to look at kind of what's universal across schools. We have to look at it school by school. But these questions are really great conversations to have about what's important for you in your AVID elementary implementation. How do you know that it's working? And what's the intent? Like, what did you really want? What problems did you want AVID to solve? So that's questions 39, 40, and 41. Those are great questions to bring to a future meeting with an IS. And it would be great to do it, either before winter break here or early in second semester. The page after that is a supplemental instruction sheet. And so this is not available on the web interface, but if you have questions about what a question means or what information you should be reporting, these supplemental instructions should help give some additional guidance in supporting why things are the way they are and what you should be reporting. So there's a few pages of that there as well. So here's your call to action. If you've not opened or started your site data form for 25-26, you should set aside 30 minutes in the next 5 days, in the next week. Plan out, set a plan for your site data submission. Backwards map from February 6th to early December. What do we need to do? What are our benchmarks for making sure things get done? You're going to automatically realize that there's some data that you do not have easy access to, and you're going to need additional staff support. So identify what questions those are and who can get that information. You may also want to consider figuring out what can be divided amongst team members. So this, again, does not fall on one person's shoulders. If you have additional questions, your district director is a great resource, or your AVID implementation strategist can help answer some questions. Feel free to share this video with key team members so you can align your understanding about what the work is. And ultimately, make sure you're ready to submit by the end of the day on February 6th. Please know that we will spend time in the coming